All right, here we go. This is that moment of truth. Let me make sure everything's locked and loaded. YouTube, I think you're awake. Are you not quite? Rockfin, where are you? Rockfin, come on, Rockfin. Rockfin is a little slow. Okay, YouTube is officially awake, and Twitter also awake. Where are you, Rockfin? You guys know me. I gotta see them all. Sorry, guys. It's taking a couple minutes. But all right, Rockfin's up. Okay, we got it. Rockfin was last today, but that's okay. Usually Twitter's first, then YouTube and Rockfin are usually battling for a chance for second and third. But today, Rockfin was definitely in third. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Or wait, it's not morning anywhere. Yeah, we do this one a little later. I always forget. Yeah, it's afternoon pretty much everywhere. Unless you're in the future. I think Australia might be like really early in the morning right now. And to everyone listening to the podcast later, good to see you. Hope everything is well with whatever it is you're up to. And please do leave a 5-star review. Would you write a nice review? Leave 5 stars. That'd be wonderful to all the podcast listeners. This is the interview show for the week of Get Your News On with Ron. And this is our MMT segment for the month. Once a month, we do an MMT segment. And this month's segment is going to be interesting. I'm going to bring my MMT dealer in just a second. But I'll introduce the segment first. So we're going to be having a discussion on MMT and crypto. Are they compatible? Are they simpatico? Are they in conflict? We're going to kind of unpack all that and or have a discussion around it. But helping me through, and I'll explain a little more here. But first, let me bring in my MMT dealer. He hosts the Activist MMT podcast, and you know him on these monthly MMT segments that just happen to take place on a Monday. Please welcome back to the show, the good one, Jeff Epstein. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, Ron. How you doing? I love hearing MMT dealer. I love it.
Yeah, man.
How's it going?
Gig. It's a really good gig. And to have that gig, you have to put tape on your glasses. So you're crushing it. You're nailing
Yes.
it. You got it.
Thank you. I'm trying.
So we always start these out with kind of a brief like snapshot of MMT. And MMT, of course, for anyone who is new to this segment, MMT stands for Modern Monetary Theory. It acknowledges the economic truth that we, especially here in the United States, we're a nation, we create our own currency, and we can use that however we choose to. The powers that be choose to give Wall Street unlimited money and the war machine unlimited money. What they could also do is they could use things to combat climate change. They could give everyone health care, et cetera, et cetera. Putting money into the economy doesn't automatically create inflation. There are other factors at play. So we could create currency responsibly and never have to face the quote, we can't afford this argument, because it's a nonsense argument. Because guess what? We create our own currency. We have all the ingredients. Let's make the sandwich. That's what MMT acknowledges. Jeff, would you like to add anything before we continue?
I will just say that the government and national government of countries such as the U.S. and UK and all that, Australia and Japan and Canada, can only spend. It is not possible for them to spend except by creating more money. And that logically extends to changing everything. Absolutely everything. Collecting taxes is nonsense. Borrowing from China is nonsense, and on and on and on. I'll leave it there.
So we're talking today about cryptocurrency and MMT. So I'll tell you what spawned this idea is there was this guy once who I had I think it was you actually. I'm assuming it was you because you're usually who I talk about MMT with like 90% of the time. And so I had you on, and then I had a crypto guest on to, just talk about it. And this person freaked out, and they were just like, these are opposite ideas, and I can't be here. And I think they boycotted the show because, whenever you hear an idea that you don't like on any podcast, you should boycott it forever immediately. Otherwise, you're not cool on Twitter. But so I think that's what this person did. And they said that there are ideas that are completely in conflict. And first of all, quick side note, this is my show where I talk to people who have different ideas all the time. I talk to people who I agree with. I talk to people who I don't agree with. And that's what I do. If I only talk to people who I agree with on everything and have all the same ideas, that wouldn't really be a show. It'd be a cult. I'm not really interested in running a cult. Not this week, anyway. Maybe next week. I don't know. But in the meantime, not running a cult. So, but I kind of thought about that thing, like, oh, are they totally in conflict? And I can kind of see it. So first, let's start. Like I can kind of see it from all angles. I would say the short answer, I would say no, they're not totally in conflict. But they are different. And, one is the theory that, goes around the creation of currency. The other is decentralizing currency. Cryptocurrency is basically it is a currency that revolves around what is called a blockchain. So it is a digital asset kept on the blockchain and monitor accordingly. And it is to an extent decentralized, and that's what cryptocurrency is. So let's start with just the question itself. Jeff, would you say that they are in conflict, simpatico, a little bit of both?
Well, before I answer that, I need to. I'm not an expert on this at by any extent. I did an interview on it. I've
Neither
done
am
some
I.
reading on it. Yeah, so I just want to be clear. I'm not like an expert on this. I know some basics about it, enough, I think, that we can have an interesting conversation. But I just want to be clear about that. MMT is a theory about how money is created and moves through the economy and then dies.
Right.
And Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is a specific kind of asset, a specific kind of commodity. So it's not comparable, really. I mean, to say that, are they compatible or not compatible? But that said, there's no. I mean, MMT doesn't have a problem with Bitcoin. I mean, it's just it is an asset.
Some MMT people would disagree with what you just said, I think. I don't, but I think some would.
No, I don't think. I think I'm accurate with the MMT view as far as Bitcoin itself is not a problem in any way. It's something that people get lucky in. If you are lucky enough and do your research enough and you get out when you need to get out enough, there is nothing wrong with investing in Bitcoin. You can get rich if you're lucky. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing incompatible with that. The problem comes in where Bitcoin is conflated with something that is compatible with in any way the money that the government creates, that money that national governments create. They're just not the same thing. They're simply not the same thing. Bitcoin it was designed from the ground up to be a finite substance, to have 21 million coins total, by whatever 100 years from now or whatever it is. It is a finite physical substance in digital form, where that is very different from the government creates money, taxes money, deletes money. The population grows, and so more money is needed. The sectors are inflationary, so taxation might be needed, or laws or regulations might be needed. Money is something that national governments create and destroy, and banks create and destroy every minute of every day. Bitcoin is a finite asset that is just something that you can invest in if you would like. So the problem that MMTers have with Bitcoin is not Bitcoin itself. It's the false idea that Bitcoin, the commodity, the investment, the asset, is in any way compatible with government money. They're just simply not comparable.
Well, who has that idea? Because here's what I say, like, and yeah, I mean, you acknowledge the whole thing where it's just like, look, one is an actual tool, right? I mean, cryptocurrency is a tool, and one is a theory. So it's like to say, but it's like, are these things in conflict in the sense of like, can you kind of see the value in both? No, I make the case that like, yeah, you can. I see some value in both. I see some flaws in both. Personally, I'm a lot more interested in MMT than crypto, so I do talk about it more. But it's fascinating to me, and I think both kind of have their share of naysayers who don't really have a lot to naysay about. I mean, you have a lot of people who like they just write off MMT without fully understanding it. I mean, we've covered some of that on these segments. Some of these like neoliberal economists and just other people.
Sure.
They write off MMT while they inaccurately describe what it frickin' is. and they should know better. But and then you also see, a lot of the discussions around crypto, you have to fall into one of two camps. Either crypto is the miracle that's going to give us all wings and cure all diseases and set us all free, or crypto is the demon that hides under your bed and it has no redeeming qualities whatsoever and it's evil incarnate. I think both of those views are equally ridiculous. I think that it's one of those things. It is a tool. It has some value. It has some places where it can do some good. It also has a lot of concerns environmentally and just the overall concept
Yes.
itself. And there's a lot of scams out there. So it's like to label it all bad or all good. I just don't agree with. But it, it's a little bit of everything. Whereas MMT is a theory, and I think the struggle that people have is like, okay, well, how do we really put this into practice? What is the real benefit of just knowing how screwed we are? And that's where those different ideas are. Where I think it would really come to a head, kind of like what you just said, is if it ever got to a point where like, well, Bitcoin wants to completely replace, or just cryptocurrency in general wants to completely replace a centralized currency. But I mean, I don't know if that will. I don't see that ever happening because it's
Well,
still based on the end of the day. It's still based in U.S. dollars.
I mean, basically, the U.S. dollar is the U.S. government. So if you want to
Right.
replace the U.S. dollar, you want to replace the U.S. government, roughly speaking, and the government is not going to just sit back and let you do that. And the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are obviously based on the internet. And to say that
Right.
the government doesn't have power over controlling to some extent of the internet within its borders, Bitcoin has to be exchanged to government money. Bitcoin is priced in the United States, it's priced in the dollar. In the UK, it's priced in the pound. In the Eurozone, it's priced in the euro. There is no such thing. Like I hear, I've heard mentioned, well, maybe it will, help Russians if we give Russians cryptocurrency, but it will be priced. So we give Russia, let's say we give Russians all 170 or whatever million people in Russia, we give each one of them a Bitcoin, but they still have to transact in rubles.
Right.
They still have to earn money in rubles, unless all companies are suddenly going to start paying their employees in rubles. Companies still sell things in rubles. So you have to exchange the cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin, to the national currency. So
Right.
there is a fundamental national government linked to its currency, where if you say we want to get rid of the dollar and replace it with Bitcoin, or get rid of the ruble and replace it with Bitcoin, you are challenging directly the national government of that country.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that's why some people are very either for it or opposed to it. But you also have to be like, well, it's still, there's still kind of like a lot of concerns, like were something like that actually to happen. And I think that's sometimes where like the theories can kind of like butt heads, because this idea that, well, we can use the idea of creating our currency to benefit all people instead of just the elite, which if you had, I mean, that's a kind of really, really oversimplified nuts and bolts explanation of what MMT is all about. But that's basically a very small snapshot of what's it about. Whereas crypto is just saying, well, we just decentralize the currency and then we'll be better off. Well, maybe some people will, maybe some people won't. So I think I can see where the conflicts arise.
I don't think you were saying, we could decentralize the currency. What does that really mean? Using Bitcoin to do so. We can use Bitcoin to decentralize the currency. What does that mean?
Well, money has value because we decide it does, right? I mean, it's
Money has
not.
value because money has value
No,
because
go
of the
ahead.
power of the issuing authority, and the
Mm.
dollar is issued by the national government of the United States, which
And
has a
if
lot
that
of power.
government and if that government were to have no power, and again, like I'm not
Well,
like
yeah,
this isn't necessarily my point of view as much as
sure.
like this is what, this is kind of what's out there. If that government issuer were to have no power because everybody is using other types of currency, in this case, it would be something like crypto. Well, then all of a sudden, that dollar is meaningless, assuming it's not based on the dollar anymore.
I think
Um,
that's I
I
think
don't
that's
think that's ever gonna happen, just to be clear. I don't think that
yeah.
will ever happen. I'm saying the reason I think there is some conflict at times between, the MMT community and the Bitcoin community is because, if that were to happen, it'd be like, well, if we have this completely just decentralized idea of money, well, then how would we ever use it for something like systemic change? Which, I kind of get that in concept. But again, I don't ever see that happening.
Two things, if I may. One is that, I'm trying to remember the other one. One is that if the United States government suddenly didn't have power, we would have much, much bigger problems of worrying about what kind of money we should be using. So, I mean, and would we have stable internet, which Bitcoin requires in order to, if it got to the point where the United States didn't have any power? I mean, the internet is managed in a centralized sense by the national government, despite there being big companies that do big parts of it. The overall network of the internet, of water, of postal service, those networks are centrally managed by the government. And so if the central government goes away, what's going to happen to the internet, which Bitcoin requires? And the other thing is, can we use Bitcoin to, do public purpose, basically, to help people?
That's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question.
And just to be clear, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, just to be clear, this is totally like a hypothetical that like we may never be in this position ever. And my personal opinion is we won't be, but neither of us have a crystal ball. So this is just like an interesting topic for discussion. But
I agree. It is unlikely, but there's no reason. I think it's very interesting to kind of think it through. Can Bitcoin, if let's say, we used Bitcoin now and we have to pay our taxes in Bitcoin and whatever, can we use Bitcoin for public purpose? As your population grows, you need more money. The national debt keeps growing because we keep creating money, because people keep getting born. And if you don't have the ability to do that, then you're going to be in, well, not the powerful people, but most of the regular people are going to be in pretty dire straits if you don't have the flexibility of creating and deleting money as necessary. And Bitcoin does not allow that. Bitcoin is designed from the very beginning to be a finite substance.
Right.
It is going to be a total of 21 million coins. And yeah, they could be divided up. But if it is a finite substance, then it absolutely, everything that you do for X has to be taken away from something else. So how do you do that? How do you divide up 21 million coins, regardless of how much you chop it into pieces? How do you do that to provide for all of your population? When your population changes, it grows, it decreases, the needs of your population change every day. How can that, if you don't have flexibility in your currency, and Bitcoin is designed to not have flexibility, how do you provide for public purpose when public purpose changes all the time? And the idea of money, setting aside that we have terrible representatives, everybody agrees with that. The concept of money, of government created money, is flexibility, that it allows you to create and delete as necessary for who needs it and for what they need it for. And that changes day to day.
Yeah. I mean, and that's interesting. And you have to wonder, like, could that ever happen with something like Bitcoin? I mean, like right now, like, yeah, they set the limit, and I'm not even sure if that's the exact number, but it's not even important. It's somewhere like, yeah, however many million.
I'm pretty sure it's like 21 million by 11, 4, or whatever, 100 years from now or something.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds right, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's not super consequential, but
sure.
I mean, what would be stopping them from changing that number, though? Like, is it like is there anything that just stops them from changing that number or having a range for that number?
Bitcoin wouldn't exist. It would have to be a whole new currency. As far as I mean, I don't know for sure, but just they have written the code from the very seed of what it is to lock in that number. That's locked into it, and setting aside all the environmental, that each coin takes more energy than the coin previous to it, and that's bad with climate change. Setting that aside, I'm pretty sure, I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure that number is hard coded into the core of Bitcoin. So sure, they could do it, but they'd have to completely create a new one to have either that flexibility or a larger number or whatever it is.
Which they already are doing to some extent. And if this were to get mass adoption, I mean, that would kind of change the scheme of things. I will say, just to be totally like fair and, somewhat objective here with the climate change argument, they are making the efforts to try to be more efficient in that regard, which I will say to Bitcoin's credit, they're making an effort. Do you see freaking the banks doing that? Do you see Wall Street doing that? Certainly not. So I'm not trying to dismiss the environmental concern. I share it, but just to be totally fair, they are at least making efforts to try to mitigate that.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean it is good, and so, yeah, that's really
there's
interesting.
actually something related. Something related is what we've gone off the gold standard every time it was desperate. So what the gold standard did was essentially, so our money, we can create it and delete it as much as necessary, send it where it needs to go, take it away from where it shouldn't be, and do whatever needs to be done. We have that flexibility. What the gold standard did was says, sure, you have that flexibility, but as long as it doesn't exceed the gold that we have. So if you need flexibility above the level of gold that we have, can't do it.
Right.
So we had that flexibility, but we couldn't exceed the gold that we have. And we, have a good amount of gold, but still we went off the gold standard for both world wars. We went off the gold standard in 1971 for good. And why did we go off the gold standard? Because it was crushing average people. Because the elite had the ability to do what they needed to do, but how did they do it? By crushing average people, because they had to conform to the gold standard. And getting off of the gold standard was necessary to deal with a growing population and growing needs and so on. And if we went to Bitcoin, that would be one major problem, that it would lock us into the gold standard was a choice that we did on top of a rule to apply to our money. We can choose to get rid of that rule. We can't choose to get rid of it if it's Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is hard coded to be 21 million total. We can't do anything about that. That's hard coded.
And
so we can't choose to go off
something else.
Right. I mean, they could create a new one, but just the idea of that scarcity in that finiteness in a very non-finite world is not a good thing.
Yeah. No. It's well, so let's just talk utopia for a second.
Let's do
it. Would it be possible for like the two worlds to marry, where let's say you have these systems in place where you have the goal of meeting human needs, and you are going to use these digital assets just to have an object of measurement, call it like a new way of looking at money or whatever else. And you have these digital assets via the blockchain, and they serve different purposes. Like one is sort of an asset for all health, and it just takes care of all health and human needs, and it's distributed accordingly. One is for climate action, and it's distributed accordingly. This, of course, assumes that the climate consequences are solved also in the meantime. And then you just sort of have this whole new perspective on what it means to have any type of currency whatsoever in a society. And the blockchain is just used more or less as a tool to just have some object of measurement. Would such a society even be possible?
I'm not against it. I honestly don't really see it. Maybe I need to understand it better. I really see Bitcoin as something that people can get rich off if they're lucky and whatever you call it, diligent enough with research and so on. As far as beyond because of the instability of the natural inherent instability of Bitcoin, just like any asset, that it's hard for me to see it being used for a grander, really very important purpose, such as healthcare for all, or mitigating the climate crisis, or such like that. It really is inherently volatile, just like any asset is volatile. Right. Musk's tweet in March of last year, that's how I got interested in Bitcoin. That's why I requested the guy I interviewed for Bitcoin last year. This is why I requested it, because Musk's tweet blew me away. Musk tweeted
That's a
He said,
sentence nobody should ever say, by the way. Musk's tweet blew me away.
so let me say the quick
Explain,
story.
though. Explain.
Sure. So he priced Teslas in Bitcoin.
Mhm.
He, made a big deal. We are pricing Teslas in Bitcoin. Of course, it's still priced in the US dollar because the number of Bitcoins had to keep changing because he had to pay his workers in US dollars. He's not going to pay his workers in Bitcoin. He's paying them in dollars. So yeah, it said Bitcoin up there, but every day that price changed because the exchange rate between Bitcoin and exchange rate is the wrong term, but the value of Bitcoin in dollars kept changing. 3 months later, however many months later, he tweeted, Bitcoin is bad for the environment. We're no longer pricing Teslas in Bitcoin. 2 hours within that tweet, 2 hours after that tweet, Bitcoin plummets. The worldwide value of Bitcoin plummets by 20%. $700 billion is lost from all Bitcoin holders. And I see tweets of you just cost me $20,000, Musk. Thanks a lot.
Mhm.
So it just demonstrates the instability, the fragileness that a single tweet by a single billionaire can cause $700 billion in losses for people worldwide. So that's really inherent instability where there is nothing wrong with investing in it. If you know what you're doing, absolutely nothing wrong with investing in it. But to say that that's something that can be compatible for something that's so critical, such as healthcare or climate change or something like that, is hard for me to see. I'm not against it. If it's possible, if there's some way, that's great. I don't see how that volatility can be used for something so critical.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think it's impossible because again, like we're kind of going beyond crypto here, and we're saying like just basically using the blockchain as a tool to meet human needs, which is not an impossible thing to do. It's hard to even fathom right now because that's just not what's going on. Like right now, it is just a tool that is still based on the U.S. dollar or whatever the currency is, and and that's just how it's being used right now. And there's a ton of pump and dump schemes. There's a ton, and there's good and bad, like we were saying. I mean, there's some people who have lost a lot of money because of it. There's people who have been scammed. There's people who have done the scamming that are bad people. There's also people who their lives have changed for the better. So it's like, it's not all X or not all Y. But yeah, I mean, like anything else, it's like the tool does have some potential, just depending on how it's used. I don't ever see it replacing a national currency. I don't ever see that happening, and it looks like neither do you. So we don't have I guess it'd be nice if we had a voice who does, so they could kind of like turn us on to like how that could happen. But I don't see it as ever happening. And
I mean, it has to
potentially
be.
you.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be you're deciding to directly go head to head with the national government,
Mhm.
and good luck with that. I mean, whatever. I mean, that if you want to replace the national currency, then you are wresting control from the national government, and that's a big ask. That's quite a big ask.
Yeah.
I want to mention that there is something being proposed. There's something called the eCash Act, which is being proposed by, I can't think of the names off the top of my head right now. And what this is not blockchain, not Bitcoin, not cryptocurrency. It is an effort to make government money, the dollar, digital onto phones and cards, and so you can transact peer to peer, just privately and directly. That it is backed by the government, so it is a U.S. dollar, but in digital form. So it's the eCash Act that is, it's trying to digitize the dollar so that it's the U.S. dollar, that the Treasury's in control of it and whatever. But I just want to emphasize that there is a version of digital money that's not the blockchain at all.
So
Or
this is my
potentially.
Is this a good thing? I mean, because this is my first time hearing about it. So, like, is this a good thing? And then I guess my follow up question would be, isn't that kind of what we have now in a way?
Yeah, honestly,
Like,
I'm not there.
in a
I'm not.
way, it's like they just kind of like in pretty much every bank, they don't have all the cash on hand that they have, quote, in the bank.
Yeah, I'm honestly not that familiar with it yet. So
Okay.
I would say number one, it is a major figure of this act is a MMT lawyer, is a prominent lawyer on the in the MMT
Interesting.
community.
Okay.
So and I've seen other MMTers, prominent MMTers, very strongly support it. I can't speak on specifically why, but clearly that speaks, that gives me faith that there's something worth looking into. What's the difference? I can't. That's a good question. The only thing that I can think of at the moment is that instead of dealing with PayPal and Venmo and Facebook Messenger payments and all that, we would be dealing directly with the U.S. government. I guess in a sense there would be an app, an official app from the government on our phones or on a card or something like that. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know much about
From
it,
a digital
but
rights standpoint, that scares me a little bit.
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
mean,
But the fact that it's supported by
interesting.
prominent MMTers, I think speaks that it's at least worthy of serious consideration. But I honestly am not familiar enough.
You're not sure though. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
not
I mean,
familiar enough.
I'm not
I'm just
either.
not
This
familiar
is my
enough.
first time hearing about it.
Yeah,
But
e-cash act.
but I will say, all right, so just to be clear, like neither one of us are endorsing this or dismissing it. We're just saying it's something that's out there. And I just heard of it, 2 minutes ago from you. But the idea of like one entity that just controls all of our money, like via an app or something like that, I would have some concerns. I mean, from a
I
digital
don't know.
rights standpoint, I would. Well, I mean, look at some of the stuff we're seeing around the world. There's a certain reason for hesitancy when powerful entities can just kind of turn the on and off switch on or
But how
off
is that different than right
whenever they
now?
feel like it. It's not that much different, but it's a little different if it's literally one thing where there's an on and off switch. I mean, yeah,
I honestly
that's
think, I mean,
concerning.
I'm not arguing against you. I'm not saying you're wrong, but it's just my first instinct is I don't see really how that changes much right now. They could zero out your account if they really wanted to.
No, I
And
understand that.
right now they could zero out your account and do exactly that devastation to you right now. So I'm not really seeing,
But it's a
I
little
don't know.
more elaborate than one on off switch.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
No, it definitely is. So no, I see what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree. But what I'm saying is to have it that concentrated, I'd be a little concerned. I mean that would kind of scare me a little bit.
We need to look into it more.
Hmm. But well, what was your personal take when you covered just crypto on your show?
That it is something that there's absolutely no problem investing in it. If you know what you're doing, you know when to get out, your research and really following the psychology of all the other people and Musk's tweets and all this stuff, there is absolutely nothing wrong with investing in it. That is pretty much the extent of my understanding of what's definitely positive regarding Bitcoin. There's absolutely nothing wrong with getting rich off of it if you can deal with that and you can deal with the consequences if you fail. So if you know what you're doing, go for it. The problem comes in with the false idea that it can in any way replace government money. Not that government money shouldn't necessarily be replaced. I'm not saying that argument, that I'm against or for either side of that. I'm just saying that to compare government money to Bitcoin is just simply invalid because of several reasons that I think I've have said up to this point. That's really my feeling. And so the problem is not the asset itself, it's the beliefs of those who generally seem to support that asset and think more of it than I think it practically actually is.
How dominant do you think that is? Because like I was talking about, I was talking earlier, and I do feel like this is the truth. Although, I guess like there's that cliche, Twitter's not real life. That it's like, yeah, everyone's either like, oh, this is the savior, or oh, this is the worst thing ever, and there seems to be very little in between.
Yeah, Bitcoin is
And
pretty strong on Twitter, as is UBI really, but I'm not sure that how reflective that is of real life. I mean, Bitcoin is inherently internet, so I think
that's true.
I think it's kind of natural that Bitcoin people, very strong Bitcoin people, are going to be online. But what are your feelings of kind of Bitcoin in general? I guess kind of processing a little bit of what I've said, the parts that you think make sense. Like, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are kind of like what we've been talking about. I think there is some value in it. I think that there are reasons to be intrigued by it, and there are reasons, I have some crypto, um, and I think that it is a tool that has definitely been used for good and can be used for even more good. On the other side of it, there are some valid concerns. There are environmental concerns that, well, are sometimes misinterpreted, are still present. It is very volatile, like you're saying. It is still based on the US dollar. So this idea that it's going to replace it doesn't really make much sense. And it can also be a tool, as it has been used for good. It has also been used for bad. And that happens too. And there's also, there's still like a small handful of people that are really controlling it. I mean, whether it be like just the people who have most of it, or the Elon Musks of the world tweeting, there's still that concern too. So yeah, I mean, I think it is not all good. It is not all bad. Like pretty much any other tool in the world, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, any tool can be used for good. Any tool can be used for bad. Any tool could be depriving people. And it's just a tool. But it is also true that like a hammer can't be used for something that a hammer is completely not designed for.
Sure.
It's pretty outlandish to say a hammer is going to help me fly. It's just you have to understand the universe of those things. But yeah, no, that makes sense.
But a hammer could build a wing. So
exactly.
Technically,
okay,
that hammer could help you fly.
So arguably a hammer can help you fly. I'll buy it.
I mean, the scary I mean, really, like depending on how far or close we want to get to Kevin Bacon, a hammer can almost help you do anything.
Okay.
I mean, there aren't many things like a hammer can't help you do.
I will give you that.
It can help you draw because it can be your model. It can help you write because maybe it just spawns inspiration somehow. I was inspired by this hammer to write this script.
Okay. It can hurt you.
It can hurt you. I mean, I guess it can't really directly feed you, but it could help you build a fire.
It can absolutely feed you if you use it to break open your door of your refrigerator.
Or a coconut.
Or a coconut. That is true.
Man. All right. Well, so I think we've unpacked the metaphor pretty extensively. Jeff,
yeah, me too.
Where can people go to learn more about you?
I'm Activist MMT on Twitter, Activist MMT on Facebook. You can become my patron at patreon.com/activistmmt. I will be in New York with you on the 25th. And there you go. And I do have an interview on this is episode 90 of my podcast, which, is pretty good. I learned a lot from that.
All right, Jeff. Well, I look forward to seeing you next. It's exactly a week from today. I'll see you at the show in New York, and you're going to join me. No, I think it's a week from today, my friend.
Today's the 11th.
Oh, wait, no, you're right. Today's the 11th. Yeah, it's 2 weeks from today. Damn. All right. I don't know why I thought today was the 18th. I'd have a show if that was the case. Yeah, 2 weeks from today. All right, April 25th. April 25th. Sorry, sometimes when you're about to travel, you get ahead of yourself. All right, well, I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Not in Toronto, but in New York City. And that's going to be a good time. All right, man. Thanks for being my MMT dealer. I will see you in 2 weeks in New York City.
Thank you. See you later.
All right, later. That was Jeff Epstein. Interesting topic. I wonder what the future will bring. Yeah. A lot of weird connections there. I will mention tour dates, and I will not fuck the dates up, I promise you. But tour dates, I got them. April 16th, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. April 18th, Toronto. April 20th, Ottawa. April 21st, Montreal. April 22nd, Burlington, Vermont. April 23rd, Portland, Maine. April 24th, Boston, Massachusetts. And April 25th, that's 2 weeks from now, New York City, baby. New York City. Get your tickets now. And Jeff's going to be there, and Jeff's going to join me. We're going to play my theme song in New York City because some of you guys know the Get Your News On with Ron theme song. That the high harmony there is Jeff. Jeff has a very nice singing voice. he can hit the high notes, and he is the high harmony on my theme song. So we're going to do that together in 2 weeks' time in New York City. So I'm looking forward to that. Grab your tickets. Oh, and guess what? Jill Stein's going to be joining me for a song in Boston. And Lauren Ashcraft's going to be opening the shows in Pittsburgh and New York City. And Chris Moen's going to be opening all those shows. You can get your tickets now at ronplacone.com. Don't wait. Tour starts this week. It starts this week, this coming Saturday, April 16th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Get your tickets. Again, that's Pittsburgh, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Burlington, Portland, Maine, Boston, New York City. ronplacone.com for all those tickets. I can't wait to see you. We will have a show this Thursday, and then I'll be announcing the schedule for when I'm on the road. Obviously, things will be a little different because I'll be on tour, you know. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Check out Jeff's stuff. You know the drill there. We will be back on Thursday. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow. I say, oh, and if you want to support this show on the sustainability end, patreon.com/ronplacone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of cool perks. You get patron streams, you get patron Zoom shows, and I'll make you a theme song. And that is all for a give what you can level. I'm trying to build a big community around this thing. So the dollar amount is not as important as your membership. Whatever you're comfortable giving, if you can give a little bit more, that's great. If times are tough, that's fine too. The dollar amount does not matter. And all it takes, $1 a month is all it takes. $1 a month. And I drop all my stuff on the Patreon too. So you don't have to worry about notifications. You don't have to worry about, do I want to listen to the audio podcast or the video? And where do I find it? No, everything gets dropped on Patreon. So patreon.com/ronplacone, even $1 a month goes a very, very long way. If you are able and interested, please do consider it. Patreon.com/ronplacone. All right. We will be back on Thursday. In the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace, love, and a general strike. And see you on the road, Northeastern Canada. Peace.